Dafna pointed towards a flight of stairs. Come on, let's go down into the vault. That's where I work. We went down about 10 or 12 steps to reach the basement area. It looked just like most basements, except for two things. To our right was an open doorway made of steel. The heavy steel door that sealed this opening was swung out into the basement and looked to be about 12 inches thick. It really was a vault. What was this place? The second unusual feature was a huge tank with dials and levers that sat to the left of the door. It went from floor to ceiling and back about 15 feet. I turned to Dafna, pointing to the tank, and asked, "What is that?" She glanced at the tank and said, "Come in first, I'll explain in a moment." She went through the opening and swept her arms in a wide arc. "This is where I work, my kingdom." The huge room had a 10-foot high ceiling. It was an oblong 40 feet deep and 30 feet wide. Using the front of the house as my point of orientation, I figured that this whole room extended out of the basement into the backyard. There were large cabinets that went from floor to ceiling on either side of the entrance. The other three walls had a continuous desk-like shelf that ran around the room, and above this desk were 2- and 3-tier banks of computer screens that also went around the room. About half of the computer screens were active. In the center, there was an island that held a variety of machines and contraptions. There was a workshop area that held some machines that I recognized, like a drill press and a table saw, but there were plenty of other machines that were a complete mystery. There was one large item that was basically a large framed glass box with a number of openings, and sealed to these openings were large rubber gloves. Something dangerous, intricate was done in that box, but I had no idea what it could be. The room was brightly illuminated by LED lights fitted into the ceiling. Since we were underground, there were obviously no windows, but a number of air conditioning vents kept the room comfortable. Pretty impressive layout. "You built this room?" I asked. "You mean the vault?" "No way. No, nowadays it would cost maybe 100 grand to rebuild, maybe more. It's got reinforced concrete walls, and look at the size of it. The roof is 2 feet thick and doubles as an outdoor patio for the backyard. This room was the reason I bought this place when we moved here from Detroit," said Dafna. "Chuck told me that you were from Detroit. We still have the house there, and I've got a similar type of a room in my house in Detroit, and we just rent that out. Although at the moment we're between tenants." "Was the previous owner of this house also a computer nut?" I asked. "No, all the computer stuff is mine. The previous owner was a prepper until the day he died at the age of 88. This place was filled with shelves from floor to ceiling, loaded with tons of food and material all ready for the end of the world. Boy, was he surprised when he passed on and found out that no one had dropped a bomb on him and all this stuff remained unused. That tank you saw outside is a commercial liquid propane container and was supposed to give him a 5-year supply of gas." "Is that legal in a residence?" "Totally illegal. To get around the zoning rules, he dug a pit outside the concrete walls and the floor. And then he had the tank installed. Once he had it filled with propane, he broke out the basement wall so the tank could now be connected with the cellar. Then he built a concrete roof over the pit, because if push ever came to shove, I asked, Armageddon Day. That's what all the preppers are preparing for," she said, stating the obvious. He did not want his neighbors to have any way of getting at his propane. When he first moved in, we had a gas guy out here to see about removing the tank. He said it would involve a crane and police and permits, and we'd also have to shell out about $7,000 demolition and reconstruction costs. He told us off the record that if it was his propane tank, he would simply use the gas until it empties the entire tank. So that is what we've been doing. He comes every 6 months and inspects the integrity of the tank. Apparently, he had a lot more than he thought, because so far we've used the tank for over 6 years. He thinks we're getting down to the last of it, but can't be sure because when it gets toward the end, the gauges are not entirely accurate. Maybe 6 months, maybe less. Still, a 6-month supply of gas sitting under the house, that sounds like a time bomb ready to explode. Dafna shook her head. The gas guy says these tanks are used in factories all over the place, and experience shows that they are perfectly safe. Well, yeah, unless you have a house fire, an electric short, or lightning strikes. Need I say more? "Thank you, Mr. Grimm," said Dafna with a mocking smile. "The propane guy says those things would not ignite the gas. You would need some sort of explosion to breach the integrity of the tank. Anyway, When we were looking for a house, this huge concrete storeroom made the sale. I knew it would be perfect for my business. Who is the we that who went looking for the house? You and your mom bought this house, I asked. Daphna turned solemn. No, me and my husband. He came to study here. David passed away 2 years ago, cancer. I'm so sorry, I said. He says, what are you sorry for? You're not responsible. That was God's doing. It must have been tough, I offered lamely. It was, she said, nodding her head sadly. I've still got a score to settle with him. With your husband? No, with God. She stopped speaking and was contemplating who knows what. I did not attempt to break into her thoughts. When it became a little more than awkward, I cleared my throat and she looked up. Oh yeah, your discs. I've got to decide if I'll work with you. Is there a problem? No problem, she said with a knowing smile. Do you know what my business is? Yeah, you check discs for the police and other law enforcement agencies, I ventured. Wrong, she said emphatically. That's my hobby. It makes up less than 1% of my income. What I do to make money 99% of the time is resurrect discs. You actually erase your disc fails mechanically, you run your disc through a dishwashing machine, you have an elephant step on your disc, you just plain lose your data, you come to me. I'm able to restore over 90% of lost data for businesses and private customers. That's how I make my living. If I relied only on the law enforcement groups, I would starve to death. Also, it takes a lot of time and the agencies don't pay that well. So why do I work with the police? Because resurrecting this is boring as hell. Don't tell my mother I said hell. Working for the agencies is fun. That's why I do it. But isn't it the same work, I asked? No way. Every disc I get from the police is a mystery, and I am a mystery freak. I read every new mystery book that comes out. I'm a platinum customer of the Amazon and Barnes & Noble mystery book clubs. It's my one great passion, my only real pleasure. So when I get a police disc, I drop whatever I'm doing and solve the mystery placed before me. So would you take my discs? Not so fast, she said, holding up a palm. I have a question. Well, you know I can't reveal information about my investigation. Fair enough, she said. I'll just ask one question. Is this investigation in the greater Lansing area? Well, that I can answer, I said with a nod. Yes, it's in this area. Great, she said with a yell. Here's the deal. I'll check your disc for you on the condition that you allow me to help you with the investigation. How did this happen? I can't let anyone be part of an investigation. I'll lose my license. I don't think so. What's the problem? I won't get in your way. I've been dreaming about being involved in a real-life investigation for as long as I can remember, she said with enthusiasm. But nothing ever happens in East Lansing. Finally, I have my opportunity. But there's personal information involved, and I'm not allowed to reveal such material, I said with determination. What are you, nuts? She chided. Once you give me the disc, I will know just about everything there is to know about the people under investigation. You're forgetting that I handle sensitive material all the time, and I'm certified and bonded to do just that. Isn't there some sort of form I can sign that makes me an assistant or something? Then there should be no problem. Besides, I know the greater Lansing area, and you don't. The lady knows her stuff. She was absolutely correct. If we have a contract of even $1, then she officially would be my employee, part of my staff. I would have no ethical problems. I don't know, I said, stalling. I'll tell you what. If you let me help you, I'll do the discs for free, she said earnestly. That's a good deal. I usually take $300 for every hour of my time and another $50 an hour for the time my computers are chewing through the disc. We're talking maybe $500, maybe up to $3,000, maybe even more. That's a big discount. What do you say? I still don't think that. Bottom line, she said with finality, either you take my deal, and we are partners in this case, or you can take your discs elsewhere. I don't believe this. I'm being blackmailed by a little Nazi computer lady. I quickly assessed my options. I had no options. There really was no one I knew that was available in the next 3 days and had the savvy to adequately check discs that the police say were clean. I could simply assume that the East Lansing cops were correct and write off the discs, but that was not my way. I had to check every angle. If I didn't, I knew it would haunt me forever. What was the downside if she worked for me? Well, she would already know everything about Rabbi Klein the moment she looked at the discs. The case looked to be open and shut suicide, so there was no real danger for either of us. After a moment, I asked, didn't your mother ever teach you what she taught your daughters, to never let a stranger into your house? Oh, well, sure she did. So why are you so eager to become my assistant in this investigation? I questioned. I'm a stranger. You don't know me at all. She suddenly smiled and said, you're no stranger. You're Simon Lincoln, age 37, born and raised in Bloomfield Hills, spent 2 years in the Marines, and after your discharge, technically an honorary discharge, you went to the Detroit Metropolitan Police Academy. She stopped and squinted at me again. She says, by the way, what was that strange discharge? Did something happen? That had been a very traumatic time in my emotional life, and I had no intention of sharing all the details with this woman. Nothing that you need to know. She looked at me funny and then continued, you were a cop for 15 years and worked your way up to detective sergeant. About 3 years ago, you were involved in a shooting incident. You killed the perpetrator, but got shot in the process. 3 months later, when you came back from your medical leave, you resigned. Since then, you got yourself a PI license and have been running Lincoln Investigations based in Warren, Michigan. You look just like your picture, but until I saw you in the flesh, I didn't realize just how tall you were. But the only surprise is that I did not know that you were now in the yeshiva. Where in the world did she get all this information? She had to have hacked into the records of the police department. I waggled the finger at her and said, I should call the cops and have you arrested. Me? Arrested for what? She asked innocently. For computer fraud or whatever. There's no way that you could have gotten that information legally. You belong in jail, I warned. What information are you talking about? She asked coyly. What you just told me, my entire biography. That's what. Me? You must be mistaken. You're a stranger. You just came to my door. How could I know anything about you? She asked logically. I think you must be confusing me with somebody else. Smooth. She just denies everything, and I have nothing to prove that she hacked into my most personal information. Why do you want to work with me? So far, this case looks like it's open and shut. I'm just going to interview a few people involved and tie up the loose ends. I doubt there will be any major revelations. Most likely it would just be the grunge detective work. You're going to be bored out of your skull. See, you just said it's a simple case. I won't be a bother. It can't be any more boring than watching a disco round around, she said, holding her hands together in supplication. Please, 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 pretty please, she begged. My mind must have turned to oatmeal mush. I could not think of a good argument to fend her off. And in a moment of weakness, I found myself nodding and saying, okay, but you have to follow my lead and obey whatever I tell you to do. As of this moment, we have an official verbal agreement that you're in my employ. I pulled $1 from my bill folder and handed it to her. Here is your salary. Daphna took the $1 and then punched her fist in the air and yelled, yes! And we are not partners. You are my assistant. If I think there's any danger, you are out. And I want the information on the disk ASAP. Give me the disks. I handed her the plastic bag, and she quickly attached electric cords to the disks. She sat before a computer terminal, and her fingers floated over the keys as she started up some sort of a program. Numbers and signs ran across the computer screen. After about 10 minutes, she swung around in her chair and asked, you want the good news or the bad news first? I don't know. Just make it so it doesn't hurt too much. The bad news is that on the initial assessment, it looks like both the disks are complete with no deliberate erasures or hiding of files. So Jackie Mills was right in his evaluation. Nothing on the disks. What's the good news? I asked skeptically. The good news is I think he missed a Google swipe on the laptop disk, she stated with a smirk. Okay, I'll bite. What's a Google swipe? I asked. Do you really want to know? Asked Daphna, nodding her head in warning. She was right. Even if I knew what it meant, it wouldn't make any difference. Why don't you give me the idiot's introduction to a Google swipe? I figured that would be more than enough. A Google swipe is what I call it when someone uses one of the programs that pop up when you ask Google how to secretly erase files from a disk so no one knows, she explained. Isn't that an oxymoron or something? I questioned. If the program works, then how can you know they did a Google swipe? She considered her words before answering, I just can. And other computer gurus can't? Again, she hesitated before answering, no, they can't. So you can find the files? I can find which files were erased with the swipe, but right now I have no idea what they contain. It might have nothing to do with your case. The disks are being processed as we speak, she said. How much time? I asked, concerned. My guess is between 24 and 36 hours until we have results. Can't you speed it up? Big negative to that. It's a long, complicated decryption, and these are just about the fastest computers. 24 to 36 hours is about right. Darn it, I said. No, this is good. We will have enough time to solve the mystery together, she said with a smile. I almost forgot. But I did not, she said, wagging an index finger at me. Partner, it's time we got started. Let's go to the kitchen to get some coffee and you can fill me in. You are my assistant. Not my partner, I corrected. Whatever, was all she said as she marched out of the vault. I had no choice but to follow. End of chapter 4. Tomorrow we'll do chapter 5. Thank you.